The European Union aims to reduce its food waste. But even if food waste is reduced as much as possible, there will always be food that cannot be prevented from being wasted. A guiding principle for dealing with these unavoidable food side streams is illustrated by the food use hierarchy. This shows that the most preferential way to prevent surplus food lies at the source, for example through improved production, logistics and storing. If this cannot be ensured, the second best option is to keep food available for humans. Thirdly, using surplus food for feed is another option, which still allows to indirectly keep food in the human food system. Using surplus food and food waste to produce compost, energy or other products is the least preferential option, only better than landfilling surplus food. In general, the food use hierarchy emphasises the need to keep food in the human food chain as long as possible, and to use resources effectively before they are recycled, recovered or disposed. Refresh has studied many options of how to use food side flows in a more sustainable way than is done today. One example is how catering leftovers can be fed to pigs and chickens.
Pigs, they evolved from their boar ancestors as they scavenged for food leftovers in human settlements. And that way pigs, they became the best possible human food recyclers you can imagine. But in 2001, there was a farmer who illegally fed raw food waste in very unhygienic conditions to his pigs, and that was what caused the outbreak of foot and mouth disease. And that is why the European Union decided to ban the feeding of leftovers to pigs. So right now we do take some of our leftover food to make animal feed, for example, bread and biscuit and cereal leftovers. And we can feed this to all kinds of livestock, but we exclude or we prohibit any leftovers that might have meat in it. And that's why we need to create separate legislation for omnivores such as pigs and chickens. And if we did this, we could actually process up to 14 million tons of food waste every year into pig feed and chicken feed. Whereas right now we only process 5 million tons because everything else is prohibited with the legislation. Refresh has calculated that there can be a significant amount of greenhouse gas emission savings from doing this practice, because we would replace the soya that we currently import from places like Brazil, where soya farming is connected to deforestation of the Amazon rainforest. And what we did with Refresh is we brought together experts, food and feed microbiologists, veterinary epidemiologists, veterinarians, and pig health and nutrition experts. And we brought these experts together in 2 different expert panels, and they confirmed that technically speaking, you can make food surplus safe for pigs if you do it right. We've realized that in the European context, what we can do is process feed in specialist licensed treatment plants and only take feed that has gone through this specialist processing to make sure it's safe. This specialist processing has to include heat treatment to kill off the dangerous diseases that might be in raw pig feed, such as African swine fever or foot and mouth disease, but you can just kill this by cooking the waste, just like you would cook a chicken to make sure that it's safe for you to eat. When we started this work with Refresh, and this is what's been really exciting, the first conversations I had with stakeholders from the feed industry, from the pig industry and policymakers, they all said, no way, this is too dangerous, we don't want to know anything about this. But as we evolved the research and we spoke to experts and we demonstrated how it can be done, slowly more and more of the stakeholders from the pig industry, from the feed industry, from different governments started engaging with us and actually looking for the solutions. And we've got a really good dialogue now where these different stakeholders think that it can be done. and it can be done safely, including veterinarians and other important stakeholders. So from this dialogue, we actually starting to now build alliances with certain food companies and certain pig farmers, the ones who are really forward-looking and realize that things need to change in the industry and that the industry does need to become more sustainable. And we will, together with these allies and the right researchers and government authorities, set up a alliance to create a pilot design of a treatment plant and work out all the further details, building on all the detailed recommendations that we've created thanks to the research with Refresh.
To illustrate further usage options for surplus food, Refresh also developed the decision support tool Forklift. It helps to evaluate options for using unavoidable food production side flows. With Forklift, food processors can compare costs and environmental impacts.
Well, for example, we have looked at stakeholders processing juices, apple juices. And there you have the apple pomace as a residue. And what can you do for that? And it could be you could make, for example, pectin and process it a little bit and get something very valuable. Or you could make maybe energy, and you could just spread it on land, maybe for feed for wild animals we have seen example of. So that are some options. And what is interesting, it was a big surprise for us, is that it differs where you are really. Because for example, if you are in Poland, then it's could be a good option to make biogas. If you are in Norway, they have very clean energy. So if you substitute their clean energy for biogas, it's not a very good idea to make biogas. Well, Forklift is just as it sounds. It's supposed to help the stakeholders to lift their knowledge, to be better, to take care of the residues from the processing in a way that it's good for the business and good for the planet.
When we talk about food waste within Refresh, we sometimes actually think we should not talk about food waste. We should talk about food. We created this little postcard also to make that clear. We say, like, what is waste? And you see these different kind of apples and you wonder, like, well, is that actually waste? And we would say waste is a lack of imagination. And even if there will always be a little bit of food that we don't eat, we think about it more creative ways of dealing with that. So, for example, this is actually made 20% out of old milk. So you can take old milk and derive the casein from it, and from the casein you make good textiles. And
there are many more byproducts of food production that can be used. For example, orange peel, grape pomace, coffee grounds, or olive pits. Refresh developed an online database to help manufacturers identify market opportunities and better byproduct utilisation. The database, called Food Waste Explorer, is free of charge and contains information about the biochemical composition of agri-food waste streams. Some outstanding examples of using food waste to create new products were also turned into the Refresh online quiz on food waste valorisation.